trying to clean it up. My vagina doesn't need to be cleaned up. It smells good already. Not like rose petals. Don't try to decorate. Don't believe him when he tells you it smells like rose petals when it's supposed to smell like pussy. That's what they're doing. Trying to clean it up, make it smell like a bathroom spray or a garden. All those douche sprays, floral, berry, rain. I don't want my pussy to smell like rain. All cleaned up like washing a fish after you've cooked it. I want to taste the fish. That's why I ordered it.
Then there's those exams. There's gotta be a better way to do those exams. Like, honestly, the paper dress that they put you in and it like scratches at your tits and then you lie down and it crumples up so you feel like a wad of paper that somebody just threw away. What's with the rubber gloves and the flashlight all up in there like Nancy Drew? What's with the Nazi steel?
It was interesting to watch the Vagina Monologues in Canada. My first time was in 2006 as a reporter on location, Abuja, Nigeria. I will give you the Abuja experience in a separate report. Now back to the performance in Canada. Eve Ensler wrote these monologues based on views from 200 women about choice, violence against women, and sexual relationships. The cast put up a production that got the audience laughing throughout the show.
The Irish Catholic man.
Forgive me.
The mountaintop man. Yeah. The baby moan.
Googie, goo.
The doggy moan.
Still, the core message evoked a feeling of shared emotion with women to drive home Ensler's central theme.
I was there when the doctor reached in with Alice in Wonderland spoons, and there as her vagina became a wide, operatic mouth singing with all its strength. First, the little head, then the gray flopping arm, then the fast-swimming body swimming quickly into our weeping arms. I was there later when I just turned and faced her vagina. I stood and let myself see her completely exposed, mutilated, swollen, and torn, bleeding all over the doctor's hands who was calmly sewing her there.
I stood and her vagina suddenly became a wide, red, pulsing heart. The heart is capable of sacrifice.
The Vagina Monologues gives a really good voice to different kinds of women from all backgrounds, all ethnicities, all races, all sexual orientations. It opens the door for everybody. It's not just a select few. It gives you that freedom to be able to say, yes, this is who I am. I'm free. I am unabashedly who I am. It's about coming together and collectively sharing stories and making a safe space where women can have their voices heard and have their stories heard and just be met with open arms and with nods and smiles and understanding. I would want the people who saw the show tonight to kind of reflect and think about the women in their lives and their stories, and maybe some of the stories that were said on stage today, maybe you can relate to them and maybe you can't, but just knowing that those are real women's stories, and it's so easy to disconnect when it's on stage, but what we're talking about, they're real things that people deal with.
I trained as a medical doctor in India, and then I did my master's in public health, and it was in mother and child health. So the word vagina for me was pretty normal vocabulary because of what I was doing. But all the people I serviced, they couldn't talk about their issues. Like simple thing like how to conceive a baby, they would be like, can you tell my husband how to do that thing? And then he will do it. So it's like, I was like, okay, but you're going to be a part of it. And even for women just to use the word vagina, it's so embarrassing, as if it's a very dirty word. It's not a dirty word. It's a part of your body, like your stomach, your eyes, your hair. It's vagina. So when I see this issues of women not being resolved or not having a space to talk, first starts with accepting and saying that I have a vagina and it's cool to have it and it's okay to talk about it.
It's really important to me as someone who has a vagina and as someone who's experienced sexual violence and who volunteers at the Sexual Assault Support Center. Being part of this whole production has been cathartic in some ways because it's a way to share the experience with all the other women in the room. People should try to take home that violence against women happens to all women. And it's anything from like the slightest little comment, you know, someone catcalling you on the street to full-on, you know, sexual assault. And I think a lot of people don't realize how broad the term sexual violence is and how it affects people every single day.
It is about equity, diversity, and inclusion. From a gendered point of view, it centers on the experiences of women and womanhood and femininity, and how, because we live in a patriarchal structure, women and people who are feminine and people who are coded as feminine, and in this context, you know, having a vagina, literally, can place you in a vulnerable position, and you're likely to experience violence or oppression because of that.
The Sexual Assault Support Center of Ottawa, SACS, is behind the production.
Something that we've been doing for quite some time now. It's usually been a community-led organizing team with the proceeds going to the Sexual Assault Support Center of Ottawa. But this time we wanted to have more of a grassroots approach and kind of in-house approach of organizing, from, you know, casting to production to fundraising and all of that components. But, you know, the Vagina Monologues is something that we've always felt has spoke to the work that we do at the Sexual Assault Support Center, you know, talking about women, talking about their experiences with their bodies, you know, regaining autonomy and seeking a level of empowerment through that.
It is not being afraid to point at people who are committing these violent acts. It is not being afraid to be looked at as a victim. It is not being afraid to express yourself in the way that you are feeling it. It is having support to be able to do that.
The show was a significant eye-opening experience for the audience.
Sometimes kind of funny, sometimes very serious. I think it's a topic we don't think about very much, and it really got me and my friends thinking.
So I somehow found the actual book, The Vagina Monologues, and I was sitting in a cafe and I opened it up and started reading and read the whole thing from front to back at that cafe that day, and, you know, cried a lot. And for me, it was the first time to that intimately understand a whole bunch of experiences of women that I had never had any opportunity to understand before. I loved that it allowed for each of those people on stage in their own way to really bring their own personality and experience to the performance, and it felt very personal and welcoming, and I wanted there to be even more men in the audience to hear those perspectives, but I also felt like it was a safe space for almost anybody to be in that audience.
The message was clear: advocate for women in whatever way you can.